Hey everyone, Jarek the Gaming Dragon here. If you're already subscribed and you haven't clicked that bell, be sure to do that, otherwise YouTube won't tell you that I posted anything. If you haven't subscribed, well, watch this video and maybe consider subscribing if you like it. Before I start this video, I'm adding this in after I've edited everything else. The rubber banding you were seeing on screen wasn't what I was seeing. Apparently, if you don't disable the Windows 10 gaming options and stream Metro Exodus with OBS, you get this rubber banding on the stream. As I was playing the game, it was completely smooth and I didn't have these issues, so I didn't notice until I went to look at the footage later. So I apologize for the rubber banding in the footage. Note to my future self, turn off Windows 10 gaming options, they conflict with OBS. Metro Exodus, the two kernels, came out almost exactly 2 months ago. I knew about it when it came out, as people reminded me, but I was busy with other projects at the time, and I said, I'll play it later and eventually make a video on it. Probably forgot about it, and only just remembered about a few days ago. There's a few more reasons than that. Part of it was because I truly was just busy, but the other part of it was that the expansions and DLC for Last Light were rather forgettable and really not that great, so I didn't have high expectations for the DLC for Metro Exodus. If only I knew this DLC would be a full-on proper expansion pack. Yeah, just saying it's a DLC is a little bit misleading. It just kind of sounds like, oh boy, I gotta buy some more stuff for the base game. But instead what I ended up getting is an actual proper expansion pack, something more like, say, Half-Life Opposing Force. Do you remember when we used to get expansion packs like this all the time? I loved them. They usually added in some extra information about the lore involving the base game that we didn't see in the base game, and that's exactly what we're getting here. Many people found themselves disappointed with Metro Exodus. I wasn't one of those people, and I was always very confused as to why people were not liking Exodus, as I loved it and thought it was the best game in the franchise. But if you did find yourself disappointed with Exodus, you'll be happy to hear that Metro: The Two Kernels feels a lot more like old Metro. This game is a linear, heavily story-driven campaign that takes place entirely in the Metro tunnels. And like I said, coming into it I didn't have very high expectations just how DLC was handled in the past. But I was pleasantly surprised with the two kernels. I really liked this expansion. With all of this said, I would highly recommend that before you play the expansion, you beat the base game, because it does directly tie into the story. I'm not going to be giving you any spoilers in this video though, so don't worry if you haven't played the base game. In this game, you play as a man by the name of Klevnikov. If you remember, towards the later half of Metro Exodus, you found a dead city with lots of radiation, no people, and one singular child. The child's name is Kirill. Klevnikov is Kirill's father. Now, this abandoned city had a lot of mystery to it in the base game that wasn't quite explained, at least not fully in detail. The little bit of backstory you got to the city came in the form of audio logs and a child who was alone without a father and afraid. You got the general gist of what happened here, but you really wanted to know more, and that's what this DLC expands on. You remember that comparison I made to Opposing Force earlier on in this video? Now you see why. It gives you a different angle at the story. This different angle takes place in the past, from Klevnikov's eyes. What's impressive about this expansion is that it truly feels just as polished as the base Metro games themselves. You'll be walking through the Metro tunnels and still hear all of the conversation happening around you. Feel like there's an actual community here. You will see a wife berating her husband because he's an alcoholic wasting all of their wages. That feeling of being immersed in this world that I got when I first played Metro 2033 is still here, and in an expansion no less. And just like with the base games, how you're seeing everything within first person from Artyom's eyes, in this game, you're seeing everything within first person from Klevnikov's eyes. Again, this game does not want to break immersion at all, which is fantastic considering how story-driven it is. It's difficult to talk about this without spoiling anything, so I'm really trying not to, but what I will say is that all this wonder and awe you had about this dead city, all that curiosity and all those questions you had when you were playing through the base game get answered in this expansion in a neat way. And again, it's really hard not to spoil anything. The events that happened throughout this expansion could have taken place throughout an entire game. Effectively, what you're seeing here is the story of an entire civilization like what you saw with the base Metro games, but in an entirely different city that you had no idea even existed in the other games. It starts off with you, Colonel Klevnikov, simply cleaning out some of the tunnels. All the slime is growing up on the walls, and you have to burn it all down with a flamethrower. To be honest, this section really reminded me of Aliens, walking down this dark tunnel with slime on the walls and a flamethrower. If a xenomorph popped out, I wouldn't have been surprised. But also, this game starts out with a flamethrower and tells you to burn everything, so how can you not like that? All jokes aside, that claustrophobic feeling of being stuck in a dark tunnel with something ready to attack you at any given moment is back. In this case, it's the form of very overgrown centipede worm-like things. Again, it's a very well-polished set piece that I had a lot of fun with. It serves the purpose of establishing the character that you're playing as, his role within the community, and giving you some good gameplay to enjoy. If you recall correctly, in the base game you got access to this quote-unquote green stuff that magically fixed radiation poisoning, which you needed to use in this heavily radioactive city towards the later half of the game. Well, this civilization in the city was heavily dependent on that to stay alive. Resources were starting to go low, and this started a civil war. Don't worry, that's not a spoiler, this is something you already know, but you get to see this firsthand when you're playing as Khlebnikov. Again, this is some fascinating stuff because you heard this in the audio logs and from Kirill, but you never saw it in the base game. You just had to take his word for it since it happened in the past. Instead, now you get to see it with your own eyes and live through it. It also serves the same purpose as fighting more than just monsters. You do get to shoot some humans. The story continues, but I'm going to stop there. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, and the story continues on explaining what's happening to Khlebnikov. This is kind of a mystery and you didn't really know what happened in the base game. You only knew what Kirill told you, and I always wanted to know more. So you get to see it firsthand. The story is incredibly well written and presented in a way that's just as good as Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light. The story is also intertwined with the gameplay itself in a way that feels natural, rewarding, and fun. To back all of it up, you have one of the most advanced game engines on the market. To give you an idea, I'm only playing on high settings here. There are 2 settings above that. The only thing I really could upgrade in my computer is my 980 Ti, which is still a high-end video card. Not the best you're going to get, but it's definitely no slouch. Regardless, even if you lower the settings, the game still looks great. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised and enjoyed this expansion way more than I expected. I did not expect it to be an expansion at all. I just thought it was going to be some discombobulated DLC mess like the DLC we got in Last Light, but instead I got a true expansion that I really liked. So far, this has been the surprise of 2019 to me, probably because I just didn't have very high expectations for this expansion. Needless to say, I have nothing but praise for this expansion. It will last you 2 hours, which isn't that bad when you consider it's only $8 and is an expansion pack, so I really would recommend you to go play it. At least if you have beaten the base game. That's all I have to say for Metro Exodus The Two Kernels. Thanks to all of you that joined me over on Twitch. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. I love talking to you guys and hanging out over there. It's just a lot of fun. If you subscribe on Twitch and join my Discord, you'll be able to see videos 1 day ahead of time. Same thing can be said for people over on Patreon, patreon.com/Jarek4. You can click the link in the bottom right. Thanks to all of you that watched this video, and I will see you next time.